Audio rate modulation is distinct from low-frequency modulation like LFOs and step sequencers. While most people explore these lower frequency, sometimes called control rate mod sources, and certainly anyone who's worked with the synth is familiar with the idea of modulating something by something else, the effect of audio rate modulation is something that often seems intimidating. Doesn't need to be. Rates of modulation below 20 Hz produce tremolo and vibrato effects and are referred to as sub-audio or control rate modulations. You're unable to listen to the sound of these modulators, as they are inaudible because they're below the limit of human hearing, and thus they're used as a source of variation to animate a sound. Modulations from 20 to 40 Hz and up are referred to as audio rate modulations. Ring modulation is a form of audio rate modulation, which we've already touched on, but it's generally regarded as a standalone effect, or as an accent to tone creation, and is much easier to grasp because of its somewhat arbitrary nature. When an oscillator at audio rate, as opposed to LFO or control rate, is applied in some fashion to another oscillator as a source of modulation, it will create what are called sidebands, which end up affecting the timbre of the sound. If you want to get into the mathematical side of things, there are plenty of sites online that can give you a breakdown of the numerical theory behind sidebands and how they work. But for our purposes, we just really need to know that they exist and that they help form the timbre of the sounds we create. One of the most common usages of audio rate modulation is in FM synthesis, which we will discuss in depth later on. But what you need to know for right now is that many mod sources, when increased to extremely high rates, cease to perform their obvious function on the destination they're being applied to, and begin morphing the timbre of the sound. To illustrate this, we're going to have a look at the humble Korg Monotron. The Monotron is a really cool little synth. It's about $40 and it gives you a solid actual analog oscillator and an actual analog filter, utilizing the same design and the filter as the Korg MS-20, which is a pretty famous analog synth. In this case, we have an LFO cycle applied to the Monotron's pitch. So at a low rate, we can hear the effect that an LFO traditionally has, causing a roller coaster peak and valley motion, bending the pitch of the oscillator up and down. As we increase the rate, we go from our slow up and down into still familiar territory as the LFO cycle becomes a fast vibrato. There's a certain threshold that we cross when we increase the LFO rate, and at that threshold, the LFO ceases to be a control rate mod source and actually begins to affect the harmonic content of the sound. Let's have a listen. I'll move it up and down within that range a few times so we can hear the drastic differences. What this essentially illustrates is that modulation, increased in speed to a certain amount, takes on a new control over the sound and influences its timbre in a manner which may not be what was originally intended, but which can sound incredible.